Hey everybody, this is Stitch 1993 back again with another list, and today we're going to talk about books, and one of my favorite authors is Dr. Seuss. Now, I'm pretty sure most of us, at least here in America, grew up with at least learning how to read one of Dr. Seuss' books. He's been a prolific writer over 70 years now. I feel like every school at least teaches one book, and if you haven't read any of the books, probably seen some of the movies, such as The Cat in the Hat, The Lorax, Horton Hears a Who, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and most recently Green Eggs and Ham. And he wrote over 50 books in his lifetime, and then there was also some released posthumously. So today I'm going to talk about my top 10, I feel, are his more underrated books. Ones that don't get talked a lot about, or perhaps not as well known as others. And not saying that you watching it may not know of them, but I have a feeling that a good bit of you are not aware that these books exist. And if any of these interest you, definitely go probably down to your local library and check them out. And you can also, of course, they're available, most of them are available through Amazon. Yeah, so let's get this list started. Number 10, The Butter Battle Book. So this is number 10 because I feel like it is kind of recently gotten more with current affairs going on in the world. It's gotten a bit more popular. So if you don't know, it's kind of a story of two opposing forces of creatures. One likes their butter on the top, and one likes their butter on the bottom, and they get into a war with each other over this, and they just keep creating bigger and bigger weapons until they make a seed, and each side makes a seed at this almost at the same time, basically their version of the nuclear bomb. And so the end of the book ends very grim, where each of the leaders is holding the seed on the other group's side of the fence, and it's basically like, will this ever end? We'll see, but who knows? We're both kind of waiting for, the other shoe to drop. This one was published around the time as the Cold War was taking off, so of course Dr. Seuss, or Theodore Geisel, was very influenced, as I'm sure most writers were, of that going on at the time. Originally published in 1984. It did get an animated TV special by Ralph Banksy, of all people, back in 1989. Number 9, Horton Hatches the Egg. Now, for most people that are aware of the Dr. Seuss characters, most people are aware of Horton the Elephant from the book Horton Hears a Who. It's been made into a television special and a movie, and of course he was one of the main characters in the Wubulous World of Dr. Seuss. But if you grew up watching a Wubulous World of Dr. Seuss, you probably remember that he had a son called Morton, and he was a half elephant, half bird. And maybe some of you thought that was a character created just for the show. It was not. It was a character made from this book. And it's about Horton the elephant, as he is, the kind, caring friend to all animals in the forest. And one day a bird comes up to him and it says, "Hey, I need to go do some stuff. Can you watch, sit on my egg, and I'll be back." And so he does. And the mother kind of just keeps going on about her business, practically forgetting that she has a child to raise. And Horton fares it out through wind, rain, sleet, and snow. He even gets acknowledgement of townsfolk, and they put a circus around him and everything, and, charge people to go see the elephant that's, laying on this egg. And finally, when all of a sudden this whole thing's gone famous, the mom comes back and is like, "Oh, yeah, thank you for basically doing all the raising for, for the egg portion." And so she finally comes back to the egg as it's being hatched, and through the Seussicalness of it all, The bird comes out with an elephant's head. I believe in the book they do not name the elephant bird. It's just an elephant bird. But yeah, in the show he is named Morton. And yeah, so it's kind of one of those ones where it's like, and a lot of these books are going to be like it's sequels. Like Dr. Seuss did like returning to these characters because, you know, they were popular and he obviously liked drawing them and writing about them. So he would add additional stories. So this is number 9 just for that. Number 8. The 500 Hats of Bartholomew Cubbins. Now, I grew up with this one, not as the official book, but as a story in one of my parents' childcraft books growing up. I believe it was the 1950s or 1960s version, and it was stories from around the world, and 500 Hats of Bartholomew Cubbins was one of them. And it is a very interesting story about a boy that lives in a kingdom, and as the king is going by, you know, everybody has to bow to them, and of course, you know, in politeness, take off their hat. Well, one day as the king is going by, Bartholomew tries to take off his hat. And as he takes his hat off, there's automatically another hat that is underneath that one. And so the king and the guards get angry and it's like, hey, you're rude to the king. Take off your hat. So Bartholomew thought, he took off his hat and he's like, oh, well, okay. He keeps taking off his hat and again and again and again. And eventually gets to the point where he gets in jail and he goes to trial. He keeps trying to take his hat off and eventually he's gonna be taken to slaughter. He finally takes off the last hat. And the story ends where they're like, we don't know why this happened. It just happened. But it's an interesting story and one that, one of the couple of the stories that never got any sort of adaptation outside of a Puppetoon made by George Powell. Which is very interesting. Definitely go and check it out. I believe it's here on YouTube. It's one I always enjoyed growing up just because of the absurdness of it all. Number 7. The Shape of Me and Other Stuff. This is one of the, of course, bright and early books for beginners. So it's a very simplistic book. It doesn't even really have a story. It's just talking about shapes, but it's done in a Dr. Seuss style. So all the shapes are basically Dr. Seuss drawings, just fully colored in as if they were like shadows. So yeah, and it's gorgeous detail for as simplistic as it is as a story. Number 6. Oh, the Things You Can Think. This is kind of a prequel to Oh, the Places You'll Go, but it's about the, you know, what all the things that you'll think. And it is just one of those stories where Dr. Seuss, I feel like he probably, I'm not sure, you know, if this happened. I feel like he drew the drawings first and then wrote this story afterwards, because none of it doesn't have any sort of beginning or end like most of his books. It's just kind of going from one scene to another, one drawing to another, and just kind of situations, Dr. Seussical situations you could get in. And, you know, what would you do if you came upon a shadow at night and came across a tower where you had to light the candle at the very top, or met a king, or saw all these types of creatures? And the reason I put this one on the list because there's one particular page that just kind of always stood out to me, even when I was little reading it, and it always like just kind of creeped me out. It was just very eerie, and I'm sure it wasn't supposed to be eerie. I'm sure it was just supposed to be fun, but it is a scene at night where it shows, I guess you, or the character this book, this little kid, at one end of this long kind of alleyway at night. You can definitely know it's night because there's the moon there. And you're very small, so you're very far in the distance. And very up close near you is this creature. And it kind of looks like it's not chasing you or anything, but it does look like it's supposed to be like asking you a question or trying to talk to you or stuff. And the creature is called a jibu, I believe, is how you pronounced it. And just every time I got to that page, when I was little, I would like earmark it, and like, so when I would come back to it later, I would skip that page because it just freaked me out. But then one day, I guess like my sister, one of my family members, unbookmarked it, so I just kind of flipped to it all of a sudden and just kind of threw the book across the room because it scared me, because I didn't realize it was coming. And that just the mind of a 5-year-old, everybody, just captured my imagination. I'm sure it captured many others, and every picture is just wonderful. This is probably most known because this is the one that they took a lot of pictures out to make Dr. Seuss coloring book. Number 5, 10 Apples Up on Top. This is another early beginner book. It's about 3 animals, a dog, a tiger, and a lion, trying to one-up each other by seeing how many apples they can balance on each other and what they can do while balancing them. And it's just it was one of the few where Dr. Seuss did not illustrate it. It was illustrated by Rory McKee, so it has a much different, almost kind of closer to like pencil drawings here. Very, very simplistic in design, but still a very fun story. And it's just it's a lovely ending of how, you know, how they get their comeuppance and everything. And it's a very interesting book, a very fun, delightful, short book. Number 4, The Cat in the Hat Comes Back. That's right, there is a sequel to The Cat in the Hat. And yep, it is the same family, same 2 kids, and it is during the winter time, and the kids are having to shovel snow, and they're just like, I really wish that we could have some fun instead of having to do chores. And just like before, Cat comes back, and he's doing all his wacky zaniness again. But the kids this time are like, no, last time you made a whole mess, and we almost got in trouble. No, get out, get out, get out. So finally, one mishap after another, and just makes the situation worse and worse with every page. The Thing 1 and Thing 2 do not return, but this is when we get introduced to the little cats, which if you grew up with the Wubbulous World of Dr. Seuss, you know there's one of every letter in the alphabet from little cat A to little cat Z. And each one is underneath the hat of the other. And so they are the Thing 1 and Thing 2, but multiplied to 26. And they also cause havoc, but at the same time, they help, just like before, with cleaning up the house. And by the end of it all, everybody has fun, and, you know, nobody gets in trouble. And the kids got to hang out with Cat again. Number 3, Oh Say Can You Say. Okay, so prefacing, most Dr. Seuss stories can be considered tongue twisters, or at least the bigger books can be considered tongue twisters. I guess you could consider some of the beginner books tongue twisters as well, but just the way that he rhymes everything, if you say it fast enough, it can become a tongue twister. However, Oh Say Can You Say is written to be a tongue-twisting book. It even says on, at least with the copy I have, says, "Oh my brothers, oh my sisters, these are terrible tongue twisters." And yep, just every single page is, or pretty much almost every single page, is a tongue twister, just on a different theme of whatever the drawing is on. So we've got stuff from money to apes to boats to the Funuddlers, and on it goes. Every page, every tongue twister is a little bit harder to say than the next one, in my opinion. So it kind of starts you out slower and smaller, but by the end of it, it's like whole paragraphs full of just tongue twisters. And if you are a fan of tongue twisters, or just like, you know, giving your tongue a real workout of words, definitely check this book out. Number 2, What Was I Scared Of? In my book, it is a glow-in-the-dark encounter, so some of the pages, I guess, glow in the dark. I've never really tested it out. So this is, I guess, technically the only horror themed Dr. Seuss book. And it's about a bear that is walking alone in the forest one night, and all of a sudden there's just this random pair of pants that starts to chase him. And he just can't get away from it. The pants just keep following him. He tries to get on a bike, on a boat, and he just, can't seem to get away from these pants. And then, of course, by the end of it, he just finds out they're just random pants, and they become friends, and he's no longer scared of them because he's just like, well, it's a pair of pants. What harm could they have done? It's definitely one of the very more interesting plot stories of Dr. Seuss, and as I said, kind of a horror mystery kind of one. So now we go on to number 1, The Cat in the Hat Songbook. These are 19 Seuss songs written by Dr. Seuss. Of course, the piano score and chords are by Eugene Padani. And yes, it is a music book with lyrics and notes to play on a piano. Now, I don't know how to read music. I don't have a way to play these songs. I would recommend checking online, because I'm sure you could find many YouTubers that have covered Cat in the Hat Songbook. And it was just an interesting one I came across one day when at a thrift store, and I was like, that's one you don't really, aren't aware of. So that is going to be the list here. What are your guys' opinions on Dr. Seuss books? Which ones did you guys grow up with and feel yourself feel underrated? Just what's ones that you had a hard time finding at your library or local store, or not come across as often as some of the other bigger named ones? Let me know if you even grew up with Dr. Seuss. Who knows, this may be your first introduction, so you just got introduced to 10 of the more harder ones to find at your local bookstore. Thank you for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe for future lists. But until next time, thank you and have a good day. Bye-bye.